You probably know about a big protest that recently happened called Fix TF2 for Team Fortress 2, but you may not know that it was so flawed that it was barely a protest. The purpose of this protest was to get Valve off their lazy asses in an attempt to get them to what amounts to wiping their own ass. Not to add a new major update, not for some new goofy hats or taunts, but to just simply make the game fucking playable. To just simply moderate their own game that was at the time riddled with bots. But Valve actually heard us and got rid of the bots. Yay, title is clickbait, thanks for watching guys. So this protest consisted of a Twitter outcry utilising the hashtag FixTF2 and an online petition which did an amazing job detailing information of the game's current unplayable situation, making it accessible for not just TF2 players but for everyone, as the website is so descriptive that anybody can understand exactly why and what they are signing the petition for, which is why it got over 300,000 signs. Absolutely awesome stuff. And not even a month ago now, Valve acted. And when I mean they, I mean the 1 or 2 contractors that are working on the game acted. But they surprisingly delivered massively, and did a huge ban wave on bot hosters and cheater accounts, putting the game in the best state it's been in for over 7 years. And the bots and cheaters are still being banned. It's simply amazing. It's not known, but it's assumed that the 1 or 2 people that have been known to be working on TF2 for the last 5 or more years have obviously been working on an anti-cheat system for a while now. Myself and others theorise that this protest encouraged them to kick their asses in high gear and finish whatever anti-cheat they were working on. Fix TF2 started on June 3rd this year. There is absolutely not a chance that in the time of under a month or so, 1 or 2 guys developed an anti-cheat this good. It's very obvious that this has been worked on gradually, maybe since the Save TF2 movement, which took place a couple years ago, though some speculate it's been in the works even before then. Though just because the game is playable now, doesn't mean we should praise Valve in the slightest. The ban wave amounts to the bare minimum that should be expected of Valve, and they sure took their sweet ass time with it. Praising Valve for doing the bare minimum after 7 years is simply going too far. The thing with anti-cheats is that they are implemented in reaction to cheaters. So if it took Valve 7 years to implement an anti-cheat to an absolutely bot-riddled game, what's going to happen when bot hosters and hackers find a way around this anti-cheat? Because it will happen. It's not a matter of if but when. And what do we do when it does happen? We wait another 7 years? There's still no way of knowing if we can trust Valve to maintain this game in the long run. They have proved that yes, they can develop an anti-cheat over the span of a year or 2 while the game deteriorates, but they still have a lot more to prove to the community. They need to prove that when shit hits the fan again, that they will react with cat-like reflexes instead of sloth reflexes next time. This ban wave has put the TF2 community in a tricky spot. The community isn't too sure if we should trust Valve and hand them our wallets just yet, because yes, the game is playable as of now, but with Valve's track record on moderating TF2, it's difficult to tell just how long it will be playable for. When bot hosters eventually find a way around this new anti-cheat, we have no idea if Valve's just going to let the game rot again. And let's be real, they probably would. The main criticism with the Fix TF2 protest was the lack of encouragement for a boycott, as a petition and a hashtag on Twitter wouldn't be enough to give Valve a reason to act, as yes, they are great for the protest, but they don't actually tangibly affect Valve in any way whatsoever. You want $1 billion corporation to act and listen? You deprive them of a few $1 million and then maybe they will. Put Valve in a spot where they have to act, which is basically the logic of a boycott, a very simple yet proven and effective strategy used throughout many protests in history. Especially knowing the kind of company Valve is, they are literally the Mr. Krabs of the gaming industry. Almost all of their live service games are neglected to an absurd extent, because if it prints money, why fix it? CS2 makes billions, so why should we address the cheaters and missing maps from Source 1? Shouldn't we just keep adding virtual weapon skins and microtransactions? TF2 is making millions still, why remove the bots and cheaters? Valve does not care about a petition, they would use that shit as toilet paper, and Valve does not care what is said on Twitter. I'll reiterate once only that this petition raised awareness for this game to people not just in TF2's community but outside of it, as the petition website made it super easy to understand what was going on while making it easy to take part in the protest, regardless if you play the game or not. And the Twitter hashtag did this as well, plus letting people vent their problems with the game and overall just make Valve look bad, which is amazing. But in the grand scheme of this protest, it had nothing going for it to even stand a chance of tangibly affecting Valve. But hey man, what are you talking about? Didn't Valve just do a big ban wave though? Well yes, but this wasn't directly because of the protest. And the fact that this big ban wave even happened proves even more why we should boycott this game. Let me break it down for you. Though before I break it down, I would like to bust a few absolute myths regarding boycotting TF2. A few myths that have been spread by not just the community, but actually from the spearheaders of the whole protest, which is Wheezy and a few others like The What Show. The first myth being that Valve would just pull the plug if TF2 wasn't making any money, because they are so rich and the millions of dollars TF2 makes is just a drop in the bucket for Valve. This is blatantly incorrect. Guys, TF2 makes over $10 million yearly. That's fucking millions of dollars. Valve exists in real life, guys. Valve has to pay their employees and has a budget for so many things. Their facilities, servers, wages, bonuses, general bills. The list goes on for what a billion-dollar company spends. Corporations like Valve account for every single penny. Millions of dollars is not just a drop in anybody's bucket. And it just goes to show how out of touch someone like Wheezy is from the real world. No offense. The amount of times this Wheezy guy has straight up lied about his views on certain topics is unreal. He claims that he was never against a boycott, even though in his video announcing Fix TF2, he has a whole segment explaining why we should not do a boycott, and why it would actually negatively affect our chances of fixing the game, because he thought that Valve would just shut the game down if TF2 stopped making money.
Everyone refusing to buy items from the in-game shop until Valve gets their shit together. And while I respect the principle behind voting with our wallets, I think this would be a horrible idea. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of Valve for a moment. This is a company that's maintained a near monopoly on PC gaming distribution. They have an infinite money generator. What? And much of the company's recent developments have just been new ways to expand their bread and honey. TF2, revenue-wise, is not a high priority for Valve. The cash flow it provides is pennies compared to what they bring in through Steam. Valve aren't blind. They know the bot crisis is costing them money, but in their eyes, they view the continual upkeep of the game to be an endeavor not worth pursuing. And you're telling me that the best way to get Valve to pay attention to a comparatively minuscule asset would be to decrease its profitability even more. I'm not claiming it's impossible that this could be a catalyst for change, but we're playing with fire here, and it goes against the foundational basis for why we rallied together in the first place. What do we have to lose? Even if we were to grant the premise that a boycott would motivate Valve to get their ass in gear, most dedicated players who wail out on the game use third-party sites where Valve gets no kickback. Because remember, like all the fucking big dogs, all the whales, they're using third-party sites. Valve doesn't get any cut of that.
Well, I personally know several traders that probably open 6,000 to 7,000 cases every time a new update comes out.
And they're buying them off the Steam market?
They're buying them direct. Well, of course, they have to come from Valve first before they become tradable.
Okay, I see what you mean, sure.
Let me hit you with a very comfortable slap that Valve is in no position to shut down TF2. Games like TF2 can't just get shut down, not when people have thousands of dollars invested into the game. Shutting down TF2 would cause a catastrophe far bigger than the bot crisis. If Valve pulled the plug on TF2, the sense of security players have for what they own, not in only Valve games, but live service games in general, would never be the same. It would affect the live service gaming economy so terribly, especially Valve's live service games. And Valve's not stupid when it comes to money. Every corporation prioritizes money, but Valve is on the level of pure greed. And they would never ever do some dog shit like that. Are you kidding me? Instead of pulling the plug on TF2, Valve could just hire a few people for nothing to do treadmill work, to just ban botnets and cheaters and keep making money on TF2, rather than pulling the plug, losing money, risking damaging CS2's economy, causing a catastrophe for live service gaming in general, and absolutely butchering their own reputation in the process. It's clear Valve has no intentions of listening to what player bases want or need, as long as the game is making the amount of money that it should. Just like what I said before about CS2. Look, I'm not gonna act like I'm an expert. I'm not sure exactly what Valve would do if we put them in a tricky spot with a mass boycott, though I know 100% they wouldn't just shut the game down. I know this because I used my extremely average sized brain to figure that out. They won't shut it down because they can't. It's as simple as that. Unless they want to fuck themselves over financially and socially, yeah, they would shut it down. So no, Valve cannot shut down TF2. And no, millions of dollars is not a drop in any gaming corporation's bucket. Another myth I've seen thrown around is something along the lines of that the effort and time allocated to update, moderate, and in general just work on TF2 is not worth it for Valve if a mass boycott was performed, because of how much money it makes compared to other games. So it would make more sense to just work on other more popular games or upcoming projects and make more money. A lot of people use this reason to deny the idea of a boycott, and Wheezy implies something similar in this UFR clip I'll play right now.
Man, like a few $1 million for Valve is an hour. Okay, like I said, it's the fucking B movie. They make all their money back. The biggest TF2 boycott we're ever going to do. They're going to recuperate all that loss in less time than it takes to finish the fucking B movie. And we need to understand that fact.
I understand. I think most people do, but if someone doesn't...
I don't think they do, because everyone's fucking hoping up and hyped up on this shit. It's probably not gonna work.
But
Well, is anything we do gonna have a high likely chance of working?
No, I agree.
It's simply another
yes,
avenue.
I agree. Because I wouldn't have started the first, or not me starting, I wouldn't have participated in the first one if I didn't think a 1% chance wasn't worth trying. Because I explicitly state that going the angle that we did is also like a 1% chance. So I think it's worth it, and I think it's worth doing. But I don't want people to get all fucking like teary-eyed and disappointed when it probably doesn't work in the end. Really, it probably won't.
I don't know why the emotions of how invested another person is into it doesn't matter. Like
because it lowers community morale, but it doesn't work, and everyone feels cheated and lied to. Of course.
What?
Yeah, people need to set their expectations and check.
What?
1% chance. 1%. That's what we're looking at here.
I don't. If someone were to tell me, like, no, this will work, I'm not gonna I will tell them, well, I don't think so, but I won't tell them, like, no, you're wrong, definitively, because I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's a 1% chance, I don't know if it's a 0% chance, it's like Schrodinger's chance, like, it hasn't happened yet. We have no way of knowing what percentage chance it is.
I find Wheezy's logic and mindset to contradict the whole idea of a protest. The whole point of a protest is to convey a message, and in this case we are fed up with the game's treatment, so we should boycott, regardless of if the game makes under $1 million or billions of dollars. It doesn't matter. The time it takes to finish the B-movie is at least how much time is spent on TF2 a year, from adding hats, maps, game modes, implementing contracts to new Halloween maps, fixing bugs on those new maps, general fixes, etc. There's obvious proof in the pudding that Valve is willing to put at least more than a few hours a year into specifically TF2 to make $10 to $15 million on it yearly. A few good reasons why Valve wouldn't just drop TF2 like a hot potato if a mass boycott was performed is because it's obvious for years they have still cared about keeping TF2's economy alive, for probably a few reasons. Maybe because they want the extremely low effort millions of dollars it makes, or they think it helps keep their other economies propped up, which it does, or they don't want to be known as a corporation that is currently being boycotted for neglecting one of the most iconic, well-known first-person shooters of all time. Valve will have a much tougher time getting people to buy their upcoming Deadlock and other projects if it's widespread knowledge that TF2 is being boycotted. Bad reputation can severely affect a company financially, especially when the same problems prominent with TF2 are prominent in not only every live service game they offer, but probably the upcoming live service games too. There's more than a few reasons why a boycott would be far more effective than just a petition and a hashtag. I love what the movement did, but there was no reason to exclude a boycott. Anyway, what really matters is that there's proof in the pudding that Valve cares about keeping TF2's economy alive. Yes, for very little effort, yes. But it would also cost Valve very little effort to invest what would be pennies to them to just employ staff to moderate Valve servers, to ban botnets of idlers and cheaters, essentially hire staff to perform treadmill work, which is what they should do for not only TF2, but a lot of their games. TF2 isn't a massive game. Some treadmill work is all it needs. When Uncle Dane interviewed some TF2 devs when the game was in a playable state sometime around Jungle Inferno, one dev confirms that he had to manually ban hundreds of thousands of bot accounts just for them to be back up 3 days later. But Valve has the resources to hire people to do work like this. Valve can easily hire a few staff whose jobs are solely to ban these nets of bots for not only TF2 but maybe CS2 as well, which after a while would definitely discourage these bot hosters. With moderation on TF2, players would actually start to report botnets. It wouldn't be difficult to locate and ban these bots. If you do some digging, you can find botnets yourself, just like Zesty Jesus has. It's not too complicated. TF2 is a game Valve doesn't make much money on compared to their juggernauts like CSGO and Steam, though it still makes them millions for doing nothing except having their thumbs in their asses. All the updates consist of community-made content, the maps, the hats, the taunts, you name it. All we are asking for is treadmill work, and Valve has more than enough money to cover an employee or two to do purely just that. Besides, the whole point of a protest is to make a statement or action expressing disapproval of or objection to something. Wheezy and a portion of the community has this extremely limited mindset when it comes to what we can include in this protest. Oh, we can't boycott because Valve will shut down TF2. No, they won't. Oh, millions is nothing to Valve. That's not true. Oh, it's not worth it to work on TF2 because they make the money back in like 1 hour. What's the point of spearheading a protest if you're just gonna act like Valve is untouchable? You don't know if you don't try. The whole point of a protest is to express dissatisfaction with something, regardless of the chance the protest has of making a difference. Whether it's 90% chance of success or 1%, you don't just exclude a potential strategy because you think it may not work, especially when it's an absolute no-brainer like a boycott, and has literally no downsides to it. Also, the entry level to take part in a boycott is even lower than signing a petition or posting a hashtag. There is no barrier of entry to participate in a boycott. All you have to do is not spend money on specifically TF2 hats and other bullshit. Not that difficult. All you need to do is nothing. There is not one good reason why a boycott did not happen. The Watch Show's recent video tries to give reasons to why no boycott was pushed, and he has not one good piece of proof or even a single good reason.
A boycott would have garnered less supporters, less headlines, and less people talking about the movement.
How do you know this? How?
It
How?
makes
How?
no sense.
How and
It's
why?
so laughable.
How and why do you know this? You have no way of knowing this.
And also, isn't like a boycott the first thing that people do when they're dissatisfied with a product or company, aside from complaining about it on social media? They protest and they boycott. So how in any way would have this garnered fewer headlines? It's still a great headline for a random game journal to slap into an AI prompt, right? You know, TF2 boycott, boom, instant article. If you had enough people doing that, it would have garnered the same amount of noise and headlines. It makes no sense.
Does this guy have a magic globe or something predicting the future? Like, how do you even know this?
Valve has kind of put us into a tricky spot because we were getting ready to make a big push for a Team 2 boycott. The reasoning for a boycott being that the player base shouldn't support a product that is unplayable. The obvious problem with that now is that currently the game is playable, and it doesn't really make sense to punish Valve's wallets for a problem that they just fixed. If Valve loses money after...
So, I disagree. The problem is that they let this shit fester for 6 years.
Yeah, yeah. It's more like we're punishing you retroactively because you took so long to fix it.
Valve has entirely lost my trust. They let this shit go on for 6 years. And frankly, I'm surprised more people aren't on board with boycotting them even now, because if you were to pick any other company that let this shit happen over the years, they would have hemorrhaged more customers than TF2 did. TF2 basically lost none. They lost my trust forever. And until I see serious change, they're not getting my money.
Yeah, no, I don't know why you would... I don't know why you would actively invest in keys and buy keys for the new summer update when you have no guarantee or long-term commitment from Valve. I don't know why you do it. It is a bad investment, and you're rewarding the company for doing the bare minimum amount of work without knowing if they will upkeep it in the future.
After doing what the community demanded from them, it's going to be a bad look for the community, and Valve would feel disincentivized to work on it.
I hate that shit. Why are you pinning the blame on us? What do you mean it would look bad for the community? We have every fucking right to be angry with Valve. Even now, we have every right to be mad with them. What do you mean it would look bad on us?
Yeah, if I'm with an abusive partner in a relationship, and I'm like, hey, you really need to stop taking money out of our shared bank account to go gamble away, and they're like, okay, and then they stop, and I'm like, okay, so I'm still not putting any more money into our bank account until you show long-term change in your gambling addiction, and they get mad at me for that. I'm breaking up with them. Fuck that. That's stupid. That's a bad commitment. That's not how commitment works.
No, and again, it's like we should not be holding what Valve did in such high regard, because again, like I keep saying, it amounted to them wiping their own ass, to doing the bare minimum, and to say that we would look bad for continuing to have no trust in them, and also not be willing to spend money on the game and advocating for it until we see some, let's say, I don't know, long-term consistent care. I don't see why that would make us look bad. If anything, that should still be the expected response.
Yes.
That's just my point of view.
Yes.
If Valve wasn't worried about the money TF2 makes, they wouldn't keep updating it, and they wouldn't have been working on an anti-cheat for it. And it's not just the money that's important here. When you have a game with such a legacy such as TF2, you're gonna have a pretty shitty reputation when there's a protest called #Fix TF2, and their reputation would be even worse if gaming journalists could say, oh, TF2 community encourages a mass boycott due to Valve's neglect. Or, TF2 community hurts the game's bottom line, demanding for long-term moderation, or some shit like that. Right now, we are in the Valve loop, a cycle that has been happening for years. Every time Valve has implemented a new strategy of preventing cheaters and bots, it has only lasted for about a few weeks, maximum a month, until bot hosters figure a way around it. And yes, this anti-cheat has performed better than any other system TF2 has ever had, probably over a month now, maybe 2 months. Though, even if this anti-cheat does keep bots out for 7 months or more, that's not long enough to trust Valve and invest in this game again. Valve hates doing treadmill work, so based on Valve's shitty track record, it's safe to assume that when the cheaters find a way around this new anti-cheat, that Valve will take a long time to implement another. And hey, it makes sense Valve works this way, because this ban wave was totally something that they didn't need to do, in terms of Valve standards that is. They could have just sat on their asses and done nothing, since TF2 players still spend money on the game anyway. So why all of a sudden? Why has Valve decided to ban all these bots and cheaters? What made Valve do this? It's certainly not the Twitter hashtag or a petition. It could be because of the potential possibility that the upcoming summer cosmetic update would make less money than expected due to the protest, but it's most likely due to that the anti-cheat had been in the works for over 3 years at this point, and now would be the best time to finally finish and release it. Because think of it, it's the perfect time to release this anti-cheat for the few reasons being that 1. There's the TF2 protest happening, 2. The summer update, only a few weeks away, and 3. Valve's got a new game coming out soon called Deadlock, and they don't want a big fuss about a bot crisis going on while they release their new big project. Valve needed more than a few reasons to fix the game, so we're gonna need to give them more than a petition and a hashtag. I think that we got very lucky that we had a very mediocre protest at a very right time, but next time we won't be so lucky. We need to give Valve at least one more reason to care about TF2, so take away the one thing that they care about, the money, the one thing we can actually take away from them. Then the What Show claims that this random poll is also due to why a boycott was not pushed, which really just proves the opposite, to be honest, because it's a pie graph showing 60% of people wanting to boycott, or at least considering it.
What he's saying right now is also just false, because, and also one poll, from what I assume to be, within your own circles, either your Discord or your YouTube channel, what have you, or posted on Twitter, certainly doesn't reflect what many others were saying and what many others were seeing, which was a much, much bigger call for a boycott than you make out to be. It's really oddly dismissive to say, yeah, not that many people were talking about it, when people were talking about it since basically day one, and rather loudly. Even this own poll shows that 65% were either neutral or on board. And you have it's oh my god, you could have very easily explained or convinced or even like floated the idea to the remaining 20% why it is a good idea. Because again, money is the only thing Valve listens to. And wasn't the idea of a movement for people to take action? What if 20% of voters thought that Fix TF2 in general wasn't worth doing? Would you have altogether not done the movement because 20% thought it was divisive and not a good idea? It makes no sense. You still did the movement, because it was the right thing to do, but you ignore the boycott fitting the same criteria of being ignored. It's like, I don't...
Yeah, because especially early on in this movement when it first started, there was a large contingent of people who didn't want the movement to succeed at all.
There were shitloads of people that were like just outright against Fix TF2 and like speaking out against it.
Anyway, the grand chance that Valve did do something because of a petition would have to be from the good of their heart, and we know Valve does nothing from the good of their heart. To think they would do anything from a petition or a Twitter hashtag is just praying for them to do something. Pure copium, really. As long as TF2 is making millions, they aren't going to feel this movement. A mass boycott could send a message far greater than a Twitter hashtag or a web petition. This ban wave was to reassure the community that, hey guys, we still give a fuck about TF2, come on guys, you can trust us, so that when the summer update came out, people would buy the items because the game is now in a playable state, which of course makes us happy, and also obviously more people are actually going to be playing, but by no means does this mean we should buy anything. Until we see long-term results is when I would start to trust in this game. Me personally, if this game stays this clean with minimal bots until the Smithmas update, I might buy a thing or two, maybe like a dueling minigame, but by no means should anybody have trust in Valve just yet. We need to show Valve that we won't be slaves to this never-ending cycle. The community is also to blame for this never-ending cycle. If the game is dog shit, do not pay for dog shit. As simple as that. Though just because the game isn't dog shit for 2 seconds doesn't mean you should be supporting the corporation that has made sure that it has been nothing but dog shit for, what, over 6 years now? Now is better than ever to boycott, to show Valve that even if you do make the game playable for a bit, we still don't trust you. This protest should be focused on the boycott, and we should be loud that we are gonna boycott. Until we have trust in Valve again, this protest should be focused on the boycott, and we should be loud that we are gonna boycott until we have trust in Valve again. And yes, it sounds hard, doesn't it? But it's better than doing nothing but a hashtag for every protest and being stuck in a loop. We need to aim big with these protests, and it's easy to do that if the centerpiece of the protest is a boycott itself. Not a petition, not a hashtag, a boycott. That way, all the discussion surrounding the protest comes back to the boycott, and a lot more discussion is about a boycott. People discussing that they aren't gonna buy anything from TF2 until long-term results is really what we need to talk about and encourage. We should be setting goals based around boycotting. We should be aiming for boycotting for certain periods. For, I don't know, Halloween, Smithmas. Wheezy and a lot of people were against a boycott a few months ago, but this wave is proof in the pudding that Valve does care about the money TF2 makes, and a boycott is necessary. Otherwise, long-term results will never happen unless we actually tangibly affect Valve. This ban wave happened for the pure purpose to ensure Valve gets the expected revenue from TF2's upcoming case update. The wave was a precaution, a safety net, just in case the act of protest would negatively affect the money made from the upcoming summer cases. If you think that it was directly due to the petition and a hashtag, you must have no clue what has been happening the last 6 years in TF2, and you probably have never heard of Valve, because this was 100% just good timing for Valve. The anti-cheat was probably almost done, summer update around the corner, and the game's being protested? Yeah, let's drop the anti-cheat, I guess. But no, Valve won't be incentivized to moderate TF2 if they get no money for doing so. Well, this wave is pure proof that Valve cares enough about the money TF2 makes to at least have been working on an anti-cheat for the last potential 2 years or more, which already completely mythbusts the theory of Valve not caring about the money TF2 makes, because they make billions from CSGO and Steam. Guys, TF2 makes over $10 million yearly. It's fucking millions of dollars. Valve exists in real life, guys. Valve has to pay their employees and has a budget for so many things. Facilities, servers, wages, bonuses, general bills, list goes on. Corporations like Valve account for every single penny. Millions of dollars is not a drop in anybody's bucket. And it just goes to show how out of touch someone like Wheezy is from the real world. Oh wow, so many people signed the petition. That petition is a piece of dirt to Valve. When it really comes to actually affecting Valve, boycotting is what actually has a chance. We haven't affected Valve at all. All we did was made them a little afraid that this update wouldn't do as well as it normally would. Because yeah, the movement did a really good job making us think about the bots. It doesn't mean Valve actually had to do anything. In my opinion, 15,000 boycotters affects Valve more than 300,000 petition signs. It's like, would you rather 300,000 people trying to beat 100,000 Tigers by expressing their distaste for the Tigers, or 15,000 people fighting against 100,000 Tigers with their actual fists? It's a fucking terrible analogy, it's a shit analogy, but you get the idea. Both have a low chance, but one is obviously a lot more effective. thank you for listening to my grass is green take on this protest, because it is really just a nothing burger, this topic. Like, it is just so obvious that we should boycott. Like, I can't believe I'm making a 24-minute video talking about this shit, because people, the spearheaders of this fucking movement, the people who are supposed to be trying to, you know, preach for this game's future, are just fucking butchering it. So anyway, thank you for listening